day it's been. And I'm super glad that in our next session we have 3 speakers only. So we'll be able probably to save time and finish on time. What we are doing during this entire day is giving you guys 15 minutes for presentations, more or less 10 minutes for talking, and 5 minutes for chat. It's okay to be a little late. We are learning a lot, we are interacting, and we are networking. That's great. We are starting now the Spotlight Sessions 3. My name is Lucas. I'm here like Open Knowledge Foundation because I'm managing all the technicalities, but there's one person actually behind it. So Spotlight Sessions 3 is around community and organizing. As you saw from those presentations, we are trying to focus our talks on non-technical people, or people, just to frame into like the tech people want motto or discourse that we are trying to bring here. For this panel, it's not a panel, the session, we have Emil, who is here from Actor, Olivia Dorey from Vaultie, and Dr. Kim, who will present his community initiatives. If it's okay with you, I would like to start with Olivia, and then we can follow the surname by alphabetical order. Hi, Kim. Great to have you again with us. And yeah, the floor is yours, Olivia. Do you have slides to share? Then I need to make you present.
No slides today.
No.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you folks.
Great.
I'm hoping to make some more room for questions in the talk. I want to spend a little bit of time with you today to talk about my background in community and organizing, give you a sense of what I'm hoping that we can do here together, and then give you some tools to take away that have to do with the really cool place where I'm working now. So my name is Olivia. I'm a young East Coaster. I'm a single mom here, and I live intergenerationally with my family in rural Nova Scotia. I spent the first 10 years of my career on Parliament Hill up in Ottawa in Canada, and I had quite an education into how the machinery of government works, the expenditure management systems. I got up there when I was 18, and I wanted to make it easier for people to understand how their taxes were being spent. I was a page, so I got to hand out these huge 400-page books. And I sat down and tried to read one and had a really, really humbling experience, because I got to about page 12 and realized that I wasn't going to be able to make heads or tails of this document. I was pretty privileged at the time. So I said to myself, why can't my dad go online and say, I'm a male between the ages of 50 and 60. Here's my postal code and my income bracket. Here's my family structure, all basic information that we all already know about ourselves. And from there, why can't he access a full list of all of the products and services that he has available to him from the government writ large? And I couldn't understand why this wasn't already built, of course, because I didn't understand anything about data at the time. I just went out door knocking until people started to explain to me that this was a really multi-layered issue we were trying to tackle. It looks like we're talking about service delivery, but under that, we've got the actual data infrastructure. And if you scratch the surface of data infrastructure, we're really talking about our processes. This is an administrative problem. And what I learned from Canada's first parliamentary budget officer very early into this process is that those are actually symptoms. The issue is the culture that we're dealing with. So here we are talking about community and organizing. And to me, culturally, we're in a really, really sensitive moment. I don't know about you folks, but a lot of the community and organizing spaces that I operate in, that I'm used to being able to turn to for a lot of energy and inspiration, vibes are low. The energy is low. So I'm hoping that the time that we have here together inspires you all to head back off into your respective circles, do what you need to fill your cups back up, and get into some good trouble. I'm obviously further along in my career than I was for that first fintech startup idea way, way back when I was 18. Nowadays, I have the pleasure of being the public sector lead for a fintech startup based in Toronto called Vaultie. And we are building out, as we speak, digital public infrastructure that is free for the world. We do identity verification services. They're mandatory for some sectors in Canada, and we're very proud of that vertical. But we're building out a really, really exciting product that makes it easy for people to issue verifiable credentials. So this is something that I'm going to mention to you folks today because it all comes down for us to this concept of trust. In community, it used to be, certainly in the community where I'm from, all my people are from little fishing villages up and down the coast. And they say around here, who's your father? We're able to figure out who you are pretty quick because we know everybody. That's certainly not the experience that people have in urban settings if they're moving around, if they're living in a new place. So the question becomes, how do we build community? How do we trust each other? In my day-to-day work, this is what we do. We're trying to build a solution to a human problem, this question of trust. And what I'm hoping to put to you folks today is to share a couple of TED Talks that I'll pop there in the chat at the end of this, and really encourage you to go out and explore some of the knowledge that already exists here. There are two in particular that I'm going to raise to you to challenge the way that we think about trust in community, organizing, and the tech that we are building together. The first is that the idea of trust is kind of broken. There's this wonderful dame in the UK named Onara O'Neill, who gives a talk about how we should actually be designing for trustworthiness instead of trust. She says that wanting just pathologically to increase trust all the time is a really backwards way to go about things, because if your trust goes up all the time, no matter whether or not people are trustworthy, you're actually doing damage to public infrastructure. So she gives this really compelling talk about how we need to refocus ourselves. Instead of thinking about we need to create more trust at all costs, we actually need to be designing for trustworthiness. I'm a human-centered designer in my professional life, so this is pretty intuitive. But at the end of the day, I am thinking of my grandparents when I'm designing. They both have elementary school educations, but my grandmother is the best person that I know. If you don't have the lived experience of having somebody who, really keeps you humble, centers you on your users, and really, really keeps an empathetic human approach, please reach out to some of your colleagues. There will be somebody in your ecosystem who can help you with that. But when you're designing, when we are out building community, let's try to remember to design for the most vulnerable from the outset, and make sure that we are putting the onus of responsibility on ourselves for trustworthiness. The important piece here, I think, to take away that's actionable is that if you switch this mentality from, okay, I need to find ways to get them to trust me out there to trust me, to assuming responsibility for trustworthiness by default, then you're actually taking your power back. This is what I see the comment about verifiable credentials. It is a super cool open standard. Lots of moving pieces. If you're in the North America, here in the States, it's going to be a lot of one set. In Europe, it's going to be in another. We're thrilled to have folks on both sides of the pond working together. Happy to answer any specific questions you have as follow-up there. But this idea of trustworthiness, of assuming responsibility, is where verifiable credentials are really cool, because all of a sudden it's possible to attribute the entire chain of custody of information. We'll have to have my boss along next time because he gives a heck of a presentation. I know that time is ticking away, so that's the first of the two trust talks. The second one I'm going to include is by another remarkable woman named Rachel Botsman. And her talk is all about trust leaps. It's this idea that, you know, we all start from point A. We've got a lot of really, really big, wicked challenges we're trying to solve collectively. We're trying to get ourselves organized. Trust is all about the delta in between point A and point B. And community organizing is how we encourage people, how we inspire people to bridge this gap. So she gives a really, really great talk about how you can use trust to bridge the gap between the two sides with some pretty actionable advice. So I wanted to just give you guys a sense of where I started, where I am now, a little bit about the field we're working in. I really wanted to land here on the idea that we need to take good care of each other in this moment, especially when misinformation and disinformation is so rampant, to take care of the hygiene, take care of the quality of our information, and just to remind everybody that it is possible to take control, take power back, even when things feel quite disrupted out there. So looking forward to hearing from the other panelists and finding out what kind of good trouble we can get into. Take good care.
Oh, what a lovely talk, Olivia. Thank you so much for that. You just kind of set the tone calmly again, like we were super in a rush for everything. Really love this. I think everyone actually. We don't have any questions in the notes right now, but they can emerge. Maybe you guys are also processing. And feel free to drop your questions to the chat or through the shared notes, and then Olivia will keep an eye. And maybe answer directly there. Thank you very much for coming, really. And thank you very much for being on time, because now officially we are not late anymore. We're finishing at 30, and then we have two other speakers, and that's great. We have a new message here. Let's see if this is a question or something you can address. When I told you can read it, right? When I told the National Strategy for Trust Identity in Cyberspace, that calling thing that glued it all together, the technology policy, trust framework may be a bad idea, and that they should consider calling it an accountability framework. Any comments on that, Olivia? And then we can finish right after.
So accountability is one of my favorite words of all time, because it always requires us to be accountable to someone else. If my boss were here, when we talk about trust frameworks, the funny thing is that it's a Russian doll effect. If you have a Canadian trust framework, then somebody has to authenticate who is the Canadian source of authority. And once we've authenticated the Canadian source of authority, somebody has to authenticate the authenticator of the source of authority. So this is where the community building is so exciting, so important, because Kalia is absolutely right. These are frameworks. They're going to continue evolving. I think that the best way to think about this is to think about where we are as a moment in time, a snapshot, to be patient, but also to be really persistent with our respective governments, because here in Canada, we've just slid from being number 4 to, I think, number 17 in open government rankings. So there are leading practices around the world that we can lead on. And identity, certainly here in Canada, has been a very, very sensitive and loaded political topic. If you are organizing around this space, by all means, get in touch. There are public servants around the world who are trying to help you folks out. So don't be a stranger. I'll pop my LinkedIn in the chat and links to those 2 TED Talks for you. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Olivia. So now from Canada, we're going to the UK. We passed through Kenya, France, Spain, so many other countries as well. That's great to see this global community here catering today. And I leave you guys with an expert in community building, Dr. Kim Foale. Please go ahead for you. The floor is yours.
Hey, do I sound okay?
Yeah.
Great. And how do I share my slides?
Present slides?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let me put you make a presenter. Just 1 second. Where can I find you? Make presenter. So now you should see a button right next to the
Actions.
camera button.
Got it. Share your screen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, this window. That working? It looks tiny to me.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, is it normal
It
size
looks
for
tiny
you?
for who's presenting. That's great. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, great. So I'll start with the excuses. I thought I had 20 minutes and this is really fresh, so I'm gonna try and go quickly. But this is my talk. So I'm going to talk about community technology partnership approach. And this is based on some work we've done over the last few years, where the object is to create community digital commons that include everyone. So I'll start by talking about the problem I'm trying to solve. I think a lot of these have been talked about today, but just to kind of sum up, I think what we've really seen the last 10 years or so is billionaire technology being a thing, technology controlled by a very few incredibly wealthy people that's massively disimpoverished everyone else. I think this has got all these knock-ons that include things like, I think most of all disempowerment. So a really big thing we found in all of our field work is everyone telling us, I'm not a tech person. Then when it's like, well, what do you actually do? We find out that everyone has a massively technical job, spends hours a day on the computer, but doesn't think of themselves as a technology person. And we found this really interesting because I think there's a certain idea of what a tech person is that's kind of overwritten a lot of previous assumptions. I think, obviously this has had awful effects in eroding democracy. I think there's a knock-on here for eroding third spaces too, where now third spaces are no longer necessary for political organizing. Like it used to be, if you wanted to be involved in organizing, you had to show up and take on a cafe shift and keep a community center open. Whereas now you can increasingly just beef with other people online. And I think these two things are linked in a way I can't prove. I think everyone's really, really used now to technology being sold as products. So just this succession of apps, 100 magic bullets, maybe the next one will fix it, right? And currently we have the ultimate magic bullet, which is AI, which everyone's sick of hearing about, but it's fundamentally maybe the answer, but of course it never is, right? Or very rarely. And then what we were trying to design instead from the start with this project was an idea of a technological context where people felt empowered to do what they want on their own terms and not ours, where all of the assets that a project creates are owned by the communities. I think this is quite natural for open source people to think about, but I think a lot of people just don't really think about things like server space or hosting or, community ownership, this kind of thing. I think a shared understanding of what society looks like. So I think for me, what technology is it's a way to make a desirable social outcome easier. Now, the outcomes that have been made easier by corporations are about wealth extraction and data extraction. I still don't think we have a great consensus on what this society we want to live in looks like. And I think we could work towards it and be more specific. For example, I'm involved in trans politics. I hear a lot about trans liberation, but when you ask people what that actually means, it can get a little bit vague. And I think we could do better here. And then I think, yeah, just finally, these three on the right are kind of linked. So I think right now, digital sits alongside social products. It feels like all the tech stuff happens in this silo away from the actual work on the ground and not integrated like other things are into normal community development processes. And this has resulted in kind of a breakdown. This is because of the breakdown of trust between developers and everyone else that I feel is quite palpable. Like people don't really trust tech people because of what Silicon Valley's done. And then what this means is we don't really have local circular economies, and this is what we're trying to build. So a little bit about me. I'll do an audio description. My name's Kim. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a white trans feminine ADHD disabled person. I live in Manchester in the UK, which is in the north of England. I've got like split black and pink hair, and I'm wearing a stripy pink top. I broadly draw on these three areas of expertise to build this along with colleagues. So I'm a sociologist who did a PhD in grounded theory, which is a really great way of analyzing really messy qualitative information. I've been making websites my whole life for community groups. I'm an activist who's mostly spent time in queer, feminist, and trans organizing spaces. And I started Geeks for Social Change, the studio, to try and combine all of these. And it's now gone technically 10 years. We started as a reading group, and then it became a tech studio, and now we're becoming a community. So it's kind of gone around the houses a bit, but I think the community is where my heart is the most. And for me, the technology is just a tool to get there. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about today comes from this prior project called PlaceCow we talked about last year. This is also a huge, complicated project I could spend 20 minutes talking about. And I realized a bit too late that maybe this talk requires too much prior knowledge about it, because a lot of this is very fresh. We're just figuring it out now. But effectively, this was a project where we went around and with this age-friendly partnerships, they're trying to make the neighborhood friendlier for over 50s. And people thought there was nothing to do in their neighborhood. And when we went around, we found there was loads to do. It just wasn't published online, or if it was online, it wasn't an open format. So effectively, we just built this really big calendar aggregator that joined everything up, and we supported people to publish data. And this was a huge success, but I'll circle back to this a little bit. And yeah, and so what this talk is I'm talking about what we've realized is it's the approach that is perhaps the really interesting thing, and why we've not been able to scale it so much yet. So I'll start with talking a little bit about how tech's commissioned now, which and I'm talking here at the community level, sort of organizations commissioning tech for between about, say, 1 and 50K GBP. So what tends to happen is clients write a brief, they do their best. It tends to look something like someone shared a Google Doc in the office and everyone's put in their dreams. It goes out to tender, and everyone's decided we're going to buy a tank. That's how I think of it. So then studios will look at it and go, do you really, really need a tank? Maybe we're in a city, maybe just a really big 4x4 would do, right? But never can you have the conversation where you're like, maybe what you want is 20 bicycles or to use what you already have, or to repair the thing in the backyard. I hate how useful car metaphors are. But we're always working from the perspective of we have to build something new, and that can't change because we've just written a brief and we've done this whole tender process. And what this means is very often that the product launch is the first time anyone can actually really interact with what's built. And then after this, projects enter a kind of support phase, which I found in the community world never seems to really exist. But the actual point where it starts being used from then on is it's not really seen as a design phase. It's seen as a annoying thing we have to deal. Oh, now we have this hosting charge forever. Great. And I think as a result, a lot of tech projects have this kind of actually don't have very good social impact IMO. So how our approach works is this is the big zoomed out thing. I'll go into it in a bit, but I think the main point is traditionally tech build projects only really consider these right two boxes, the project curator and the project designer. And what we're trying to do is build a broader scope of where these projects sit within a wider ecosystem that has a shared theory of change and research process. So I've written a blog about this, which again breaks it down more. But I think so our step 1, 2, 3 instead of starting with the technology, we start to identify where there's a potential for a shared win. What's the ecosystem people are working in? Who's engaged in that work? What resources already exist? And then from that, we want to develop a partnership of interest in place. So someone said a thing I went to last week, you need to build teams, not products. Because if you build a product, as soon as the product's finished, everyone leaves and it falls over, right? You need teams. And the only way you can do these cost effectively is to work with the people who are already working with the problem in the area they're in. So often this is things like community workers, community nurses, link workers, NHS, these kind of things. We need to find where there's common problems and then find out, is there a lot of little things that would support everyone? How can we make better, how can we make sense of what we already have? And then from this, we can start to develop a shared commons as a creative partnership. So we're trying to improve things that already exist, commission things as a group that address shared goals. And through doing this, we can really start to de-silo individual institutions and develop organizations that can start to build these, all these ideas of shared resources that we need. So I'll give you an example. So this is one that we've done that's like a live project. That's from our launch party. So Gender Intelligence are the biggest trans charity in the UK, or certainly the trans-led charity, but they realized they didn't want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, every mutual aid grassroots group has literally zero money and is doing the cliche of passing around the same £20 note. So instead of this, we started by working out what was there. We did a poll on Twitter and found the median groups people knew about was 3. And actually we found about 50, and this has blown everyone's mind. But like step 1, what already exists? And this was already way more than people knew. We then offered each group some hands-on support and care. So we supported all of them to publish however they wanted, with whatever platform they wanted, just as long as it had a JSON feed, an iCal feed, some kind of open data feed. And then we invited them all to a party, which was that first slide. And we've not quite leveraged this as much as we can, but we're now in a position where we can do work as a network. And then we made this Transdimension website based on our PlayScale tech, where we basically built a whole lot of branding. We've got one website where you can go and see every event happening in London and now Manchester across 30 different groups, all in one place. And then we were able to find some follow-on funding to give these groups a little bit of money. And for example, we found out that a shared goal that everyone's facing is there isn't enough affordable, accessible, and trans-friendly space. I mean, there isn't any, actually. Everything's a bit sketchy. So that's now a thing we can go on to start campaigning about as a group to bring people together. There's me presenting it. Here's a little bit about what it looks like. Like I say, again, you can go and check it out. There's literally 10 things on Saturday when I did this screenshot. Again, this has blown everyone's mind. And like I said, it's based on our PlayScale stack, which can do this for any community of interest. That's how we've developed it. And it's, like I say, it supports any calendar source, and then it just shows everything in one place once that community development work's been done. So in summary, I'm not quite sure how long I've been going for. Did I time it? No. What we're really proposing here is an approach to developing technology that centers community development instead of centering technology, and in doing so attempts to rebalance the relationship between communities and technology. It does this by starting from what's already there. So before just building new things, we're sort of starting this reduce, reuse, recycle mentality of like adapting. And I think it's really important to note too, especially to people who love gadgets, that digital exclusion is actually caused by including new things that are digitally exclusive, right? So if you commission any new technology and you put it in, you're creating digital inclusion. And actually a lot of the work we need to do is going back and helping people adapt to what already exists, but not, and I think this is the only way that open source can really become mainstream, because as long as it's just the preserve of the tinkerers and coders, and this is the only power we have that corporations don't, is actual community. And then finally, I think a real hyperlocal focus helps here, because it means we can start to measure our project impact in terms of social impact and not things like clicks and all this sort of stuff. So I've probably gone incredibly fast. I know this was quite detailed, but I've got a couple, and it's all quite fresh. I think that's the main thing. We spent a lot of time working, and now I'm really in the thinking stage. And I think in 6 months this will be mega clear. But I urge everyone to sign up to our our blog newsletter, where we're now trying to talk about the process of developing this. And we've got a Discord, and you can like check us out on socials, and you can read more about this approach if it appealed, slightly slower and in more detail on your own time. So thank you for having me, and I hope that made some sense.
Thank you very much, Kim. I love listening to you. That's great. That's so inspiring. How you guys approach it, like, doing the community first and not the technology, not being solutionist, and really tackling like something that is really there within the community, but you could really capture that. I really love it, and it's inspiring, and I really hope it inspires everyone here. People are saying thank you for you in the chat. I don't see any questions specifically, but if you have any, you can just put in the shared notes or in the chat. We are on time, so it's fine. We don't need to rush. You guys can think about your questions, put there, and then we can get back.
Yeah, we'll do questions at the end, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much, Kim. Now it's time for actor Emil. Are you there? Finally.
I am.
I'm really excited about this as well. Great. I really want to know your approach for community through the app and so on. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Where's the button again? Where I share? This has probably been said before.
Yeah, I need to make a presenter, sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you make presenter? Now you should see it.
Yes.
I think that's your
share screen. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's here. Perfect.
Welcome.
Great.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Just pulling this up. Hopefully you can see my screen. And hello, everyone. Maybe I think I just want to make a quick reference because I think there's a lot of exciting things mentioned both with Manisha that I think yeah, that was it in terms of growing up also with I grew up with my grandmother, a lot of wisdom from there, also from the climate space, and now also like with you, Kim, sharing about your approach to technology. Yeah, I wish there was more time to dive into that. Thanks so much for the previous presenters. It's really inspiring to hear, and thank you for hosting this space. I will briefly speak about Actor, so where we're coming from, why we started, and I think where we are, and hopefully also give you some sense of ways that it might be useful in some of the work that you're doing. So some of the things I'm able to jump a little bit fast over since we have less time. So apologize again. There's probably been a lot of information already during the day, but I hope you'll hang on. Otherwise, please feel free to chip in. So yeah, briefly, I'm based in Denmark, coming from the climate space where I've been an activist for quite some years. And it was also through this way where basically we're using many different tools for our work, right? So one part of tools we're using, one set of tools were social media, or still is social media, which basically is to disseminate information. So like one-to-many communication. So creating awareness, sharing news, digital campaigns. And on the other side, it was around creating, basically an organizing space. So the many-to-many communication where we also, use Discord and other things to really allow, movement members to coordinate, to organize in different ways. The challenge, we had several challenges. So one of the challenges was basically information overload, sometimes also leading also to burnout. And these are screenshots, for example, from our Discord, part of our movement, and also from a Telegram, so like a mixture of different things. And I think there's a lot of things to be said here, but one of the things is basically spending a lot of time just catching up on messages, on staying up to date with what's going on. Other challenges also beyond that was also around security issues. So other groups we were working with, not so much in Denmark. In Denmark, we're fairly safe compared to other places, but other groups we work with in the global majority was around security issues, information being leaked. So one of the things that we did was now 7 years ago was also asking Signal, because we're also using Signal now to organize, at least, in terms of communication. And they basically said, we often receive requests for additional organized features. People are using Signal to organize the movement, the group. But again, information getting overloaded, or it's hard to actually organize a community when you're just more than a couple of people or your friends and family. So for us now, then 7 years ago, this was kind of like a starting point for us to understand, okay, this is really like a core piece of, you could say, like, if we really need to push for change, and within our own movement as well, we don't only need a lot of members in our movement, we need all the members that are there to be able to effectively organize, and also to know how to engage, and essentially spend in some way the least time amount on the phone that they need, and more time on actually doing the work that is meaningful. So with that, we started Actor, which I never kind of thought I would be running like a nonprofit tech organization, but we started Actor because we needed it. You could say we needed an alternative, and it was not just kind of about building an app, but really trying to reimagine digital organizing that's based on sort of like the lived experience of many activists and movements that we are working with, and not coming out of Silicon Valley or venture capital backed. So we are kind of doing experiments at many different levels, both at a, you could say, a product level, but also governance level, at a business model level. So we don't have time to dive into all of that today, but basically we work with movements and organizations around the world, both larger organizations, ActionAid and Amnesty and Greenpeace and Civicus, but also a lot of different movements on the ground. when it comes to actually like how we've been structuring, the app itself, we wanted to allow movements to, including our own, to organize in ways that actually reflect the reality and not having to adapt the organizing to how the tool was designed by someone sitting far away. So we used kind of like the notion of spaces to, for example, allow the green movement to have its own chat, its own events, its own task list and resources, but also allow spaces to be connected. So allow for
Emil, sorry for
yes,
interrupting. I don't think the slides are moving. I don't know if it's on purpose or not. But people are saying in the chat, "Oh, the slides are not moving." Anyway, like just to know,
okay.
I don't know if you are seeing it correctly or not. But anyway, just to bring this to your attention.
Very classic. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you. No.
Okay, let's do it this way. I apologize about that. I haven't used big blue button so much before. Thank you for. Then okay.
Yeah, we are all learning how to handle this. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's just see if this works. Then I'll just do it in this way. It looks very small, but maybe that's again how it looks like when I'm presenting. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's small.
Hopefully you can see it. Okay, I'll do it this way. Just have it in the editor, so we keep it more rough in that way. So, anyways, the space is a way to really both reflect how allow the freedom for movements and our own group to kind of like have spaces that it's just its own bubble, but also have spaces that can be connected. For example, like a campaign that is shared between the yellow movement and the green movement, but also potentially a lot of other movements. But also allow like the spaces to basically create, trees or hierarchies for, having some groups that are open for anyone in the green movement, while others are closed or restricted. So also for security measures. So just to get very concrete in terms of use case, for you to understand like how we've been trying to create a shift in how organizing is happening when it's not only within a messaging app, WhatsApp or Signal or Discord. So one of the use cases here was the Green Collective. We changed the name because to protect their identity, who were using Messenger before, where again the challenges were a lot about information overload, resources were hard to find, new members struggling to understand how to engage, security risk and other things. So for example, like using again the spaces to allow the members of the movement to create its own structures, so anyone can create projects or working groups within the Green Collective without having to get permission, so allowing more autonomy while also setting the privacy settings depending on the privacy of the project or the working group. The same with events. So a lot of things, oftentimes when people were messaging in the chats, remember they were meeting a Wednesday or Thursday or something, people wouldn't get that chat. So be able to create events within Actor, and automatically it would save to people. It saves to people's mobile device if they've allowed it, of course. Resources to be able to upload that, to find important documents, to legal support instructions, protest route, other things. I'm jumping a bit faster with this because of time. And again, creating simple task lists as well for members to know again who's doing what by when and so on. And Boost as well to kind of like again making people to know what is the most important things I should know about instead of having to read through 50 chats. So I think there's a lot of the functionality that we've been experimenting with. We don't have to kind of have time to dive into that now, but also again we maybe also don't dive too deep into the tech today, but maybe just want to say that we are based Actor on an open protocol that's called Matrix, which maybe some of you probably know. And I think there's several important aspects to that, but one of them was to work with sort of interoperability, making people not become part of a new silo, but also about sovereignty and censorship resistance. So, for example, while Signal is is fully encrypted, it's limited metadata that's been collected. The data is still stored on centralized servers, basically illustrated by this, where like decentralized protocol have no central servers. So it's also giving users the freedom and autonomy to select where the data should be hosted. So there's a lot of thoughts into kind of on the back end of things. I think the last part maybe getting into before sharing a little bit about where we're heading. So for us, it was really important to make sure that this was not just kind of like a purposeful project that then we could get some funding for, and then in 2 years it would die because we could not sustain it. So we've been really focusing also on how to ensure the financial sustainability and the independence. So we've been working with a lot of different revenue streams, including sort of larger partners that sort of like pay us for rolling it out to the movement. For example, with Civicus, we support a lot of their movements on the ground, LGBTQ movements in Kenya, climate movement, indigenous movements in the Philippines, where obviously for anyone else it's free. But these larger organizations sort of like are part of sustaining the way that we can continue to develop Actor and offer it to everyone for free. With all that said, now we've been 7 years in development, and I think I wanted to share a couple of learnings, because although with Actor we focus a lot on the safety and security, we also focus on the organizing capacity and how to look at how do you enable structures that allow participants, whether that's like a small group, a neighborhood group, or a large movement, to actively participate. And one of the challenges that obviously there's many challenges, I think so obviously one of them is always the transition cost. So with Actor 3.0, oh, not sure, did my screen stop sharing? Let's see if this works. Almost at the end. Let's see if this works. So the transition cost of having to jump to a new tool to move your communication over to Actor from Signal or WhatsApp is always like a really, really big ask. Also because there's a maturity and expectation challenge of people expecting the chat to be as good and as has as many features as WhatsApp or Signal have, which of course we cannot match right now. Then the learning curve of learning something new, and then also accessibility, just the pure fact that WhatsApp for many comes with a free with a paid plan, right? So what we're doing right now is also trying to take those learnings and actually pour into a version that we call Actor Lite. So Actor Lite, or right now the project name is Zoe, very briefly is about as you said, basically, Kim, meeting people where they are. So not forcing them to necessarily jump out of their Signal group or even their WhatsApp group, even though a lot of people are trying to divest away from Meta, but like kind of meeting people where they are. And in that way, through Zoe, it's basically like an app that you integrate with your group. So how it works is basically you can create events, sign up lists, a task within Zoe that basically through a bot is integrated into your Signal group. So for example, it's important to say here that it's only the admin who needs to, who's maybe like running the events, who's running the task or creating that needs to be on Zoe to create that. But for example, tasks such as if you're planning a party, just as a small example, a launch party for you, Kim, for the next thing, the members of the group can, for example, claim a task by raising their hand, or when there's an event being created, it's being posted into the Signal group or WhatsApp group. And if people like react with a thumbs up there, it goes back as an RSVP. If you have to create, for example, a list, like who's bringing what on Thursday, people can just respond to that message within WhatsApp with saying, for example, potato salad, and that will show up in the list on Zoe as a cumulative list that then will be shared with everyone. So we're trying to basically take these learnings and understand that, okay, it's not everyone that is willing, even though it's more secure and different fronts, more sovereign in terms of data, people still are in a place where we also need to meet them. So that's what we're doing right now and launching. So for those of you interested, there's also an early access link that you can put your email in, and then we'll hook you up. Or you can also read more via this link. I can also share the link in the chat. But I think all of it to say that we both acknowledge that yes, we need to build alternatives, but also like how do we bridge into the current reality that many groups, people and movements are in. So that is the attempt with Zoe as well that we are doing as well. Okay, that was I think the last bit of information that I had for now, and obviously very shallow, but hopefully it gives a bit of idea what we're doing with Actor and Zoe.
Emil, thank you very much. That's super interesting. We have one question, or two questions actually, in the shared notes. I'll give you the chance to reply to them. I don't know if you have access to the shared notes, but I can also read
Yes.
them out loud,
Yeah.
and then we can go into two more minutes before the keynote. I see that Jaya and Xenia are there already, but then you can tackle these questions, and then yeah, go ahead. So back there's a matrix-based right. Do you know
Yes.
the Delta Chat and Arcanet and talk about encryption and so on? It's a good introduction for the keynotes, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. No, I don't know about Delta Chat, but I'll definitely, we try to keep on top of like anything that's basically moving. So like I'll definitely happy to check out Delta Chat. So thanks a lot for sharing that. Yeah, I see it here. And the other question I'm just trying to catch up with, otherwise, look as if you can see, for some reason my chat is not really showing.
Yeah, it's like it's based on federated mail servers and now has very small footprint compared to self-hosted Synapse server that now have chat mail server based on mail server, which is our PGP to encrypt E2E. I think it's a win-win because it's easier to use and to host, secure and private. Any comments on the protocols and so on? If not, that's fine.
Okay, was that a question?
It's the shared notes. It's the shared notes. I don't know. It's more of like a comment, I think. But anyway, like if you have any...
Okay, now I see the shared notes. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, need to scroll to the question.
Yeah, Richard's just saying like
okay,
it's a tips by Richard. Anyway, like just a note
okay.
for you to keep in mind when developing Actor.
Yes, great. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Emil.
Can I ask a quick question? Does it have an iCal feed on the events?
Yeah, it does. So yeah.
Because honestly, this is just not to take over too much, but this is exactly what's happened the last 4 years. Everything is on WhatsApp now, and you have to know about the group, and there is no way we're getting anyone off it. And I looked at the Facebook API. I keep looking at the Facebook API, and it looks awful. So if you've cracked that, and we can get information out of WhatsApp, then like, oh my god, we need to talk like immediately. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Kim.